Last time, in episode 7, we dropped in the crankshaft and carefully reassembled the cases. In this episode, we'll go through reassembling the various gears and components on the PTO side of the engine.
So before we move over to the clutch side, we're going to go ahead and install the plastic gear on the oil pump shaft, and we're also going to install the oil pump pickup retainer plate. Go ahead and install the small dowel pin, and that will register in this slot on the back of the oil pump gear. And then that oil pump gear will drop down enough to expose the slot that the small clip will fall into. So use a pair of snap ring pliers to expand the clip. That will drop in, make sure it's seated tight in that groove. So we can now drop the balancer shaft in through to the other side. And because of the castings on these cases, you just have to rotate the balancer shaft in order for the shape of the shaft to fit through the center of the cases. When installing the balancer gears and any of the PTO gears, take note of the tooth on the shafts themselves that have a flat area machined into them or pressed in. And that flat area on these shafts will register to the missing tooth that is on these gears, so that the only way that the gear can go on is where the missing tooth meets the flat spot pressed into the shaft. So then now we can go ahead and start installing the rest of the components on the clutch side. Go ahead and install the Kickstarter idler gear. And this is held in with a snap ring as well. So before we get too far, we're going to go ahead and install the shift drum star. And this is what is the mechanism that connects the shift shaft to the shift drum itself. I'll just take a pair of pliers and swing the shift star, like spring-loaded detainer, away from the bore so that you can install the shift star, making sure to drop the pin that is on the drum into the slot that is on the shift star. We can go ahead and install the first gear that goes on the end of the crankshaft PTO side snout. This is going to be the balancer drive gear. And again, this gear has the missing tooth that will register with the flat slot machined into the tooth on the crankshaft. So making sure to line up the slot on the crank with the missing tooth, which is also marked with a dot on the crankshaft snout. You'll also need to make sure to line up the dots that are on the outside edge of the balancer gear, as well as the outside edge of the balancer drive gear that is on the crank. We can then do the same with the one-way clutch that for the electric start motor. This one only having to look at the notch in the tooth and the one-way notch on the splines. And the same thing goes for the actual PTO gear, lining the missing tooth up with the flattened tooth on the splines. Now we're going to want to install the shifting mechanism, the spring-loaded ratcheting system that allows you to shift. All right, so now we're at this point, we're going to go ahead and be able to install the ratcheting shift star mechanism. It's all spring-loaded, so just got to be careful. You can hold it inside this bracket so that the pieces don't fly out. It makes it easier to install. But once you drop the center hole onto the pin, you won't be able to drop it in without pressing in the plungers. So just go ahead and carefully drop it in, and you can push one side at a time, and it should just fall in like so and capture inside there. And we can go ahead and take I like to add a small drop of Loctite to the hardware that holds that plate down. And again, just refer to the service manual on your specific bike for any torque spec on the hardware on your machine. Don't forget the little collar that the shift shaft rides on. Then we can add a little bit of the assembly lube to the end of the shift shaft itself, and then we can install that. Then while we're here, go ahead and install the last idler gear for the electric start. And that one just fits there and connects the electric start assembly to the one-way clutch mounted on the PTO. Then before installing the clutch basket and the hub assembly, we're going to go ahead and put the kickstart mechanism inside the cases. On most models, there's a couple timing marks. And you can see them. There should be a dot on the ratcheting system as well as on the shaft. You can line those up, and that puts the stop where this rides against the case here. It puts it into the right position so that you're not having to worry about your starter timing. Make sure the spring's on the back side. And then wind the spring, place it into the location here on the cases where that spring engages.